up, everybody? We are live. If you're catching this on Twitch, what's up, Twitch family? Definitely hit the follow button if you haven't. We're on the road to 200 followers, so hit one if you haven't. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, like, comment your fight predictions, what you think's going to happen. I'm really excited to see what your guys' picks are and see, really what you think is going to happen, because with a fight like UFC 204, it's kind of crazy. Opinions are all over the board. No one really knows. Both fighters are old that are the main event, so it's going to be definitely an interesting fight. All right, so I'm not going to cover the full fight, like the prelims or anything like that. I'm not even going to cover the whole main card, because they've really just added fights to add fights on this one. But they do have a couple really good fights, so we'll go over those. The first fight is Bektik versus Doane, or I don't even know if I pronounce those correctly. I don't know those fighters, so I'm not going to comment on them. Like I said, guys, I'm not an expert or anything like that. I just am a big fan of the sport. If you catch my stream, we talk UFC all the time and MMA. The Morgan James stream, so twitch.tv/Morgan James, or you can find me at Morgan James on YouTube if you haven't already. That easiest way to find me is Morgan James LAB. That stands for Lightsabers and Arm Bars, our show that we do every Sunday, me and my co-host Reese's Pieces. Definitely check that out if you haven't. We got episodes 1 and 2 out right now. All right, so the first fight I want to kind of go into is the Stefan Struve fight. The guy he's facing, I can't even pronounce his last name. It is a crazy last name, and I would just butcher it. But basically, it's a heavyweight fight. They're both ranked 12 and 14, and the heavyweights, there's only about 8 really good heavyweights. So as long as you make a certain weight class, if you make that 265 weight limit, you're a heavyweight, which is just such a broad thing that not that many guys can be heavyweights. Not many people are 230, 240 plus pounds when they're cutting weight, or want to go up against 250, 260 pounds. So there's not that many heavyweights. So that's kind of how these guys can get ranked that good. They haven't had a good fight in a while. But an interesting point about Stefan Struve, if you don't know Stefan Struve, he's really good at submissions. He's had some major health issues. He's about 7 foot. I can look him up right here. Let's see here. How tall are you, Stefan? Stefan Skyscraper Struve. He's height is 84 inches, so whatever that is. He's a super tall guy. Comes in at 265, 84-inch reach. He's a big dude, a big monster type of dude. And an interesting point that Joe Rogan had was that while a lot of people develop by 25, 26 or something like that, a guy who's 7 foot, that big of a dude, a lot of heavyweights don't hit their prime until they're like mid to early or even sometimes late 30s. So it just shows how long it takes some of these people to develop, their bodies to develop. If you're a 125-pound fighter, it only takes by the time you're 23, 24, 25, you're fully physically developed and you have your feet under you, and now you can really work on technique and skill. They talk about this a lot with heavyweights. Heavyweights, it takes them so long, 32, 33, 34. So Stefan Struve only being, how old is Stefan? Let's see here. He is, should tell me his age. I'm not seeing, but he's a young guy. He's not super old. He can't be 30 or above. And it's just not telling me here for some reason. But, Stefan Struve is not a super old guy. So Joe Rogan had a super interesting point in the fact that, can you imagine how long that takes for you to adjust and to really grow into your body? And he looked good in a win over Bigfoot Silva, although a lot of people have looked good over Bigfoot Silva. Roy Nelson won his fight. I think Bigfoot Silva's last 6 fights have all been knockouts. So we're still waiting to see, can Stefan Struve put it all together? He has the jiu-jitsu skills. Being 7 foot, he's got pretty good striking. And in the heavyweight division, being that big, he has power, obviously. The guy could be really good if he ever can get his body and his health to all come in and all aspects of fighting to come together. So I think that's the only thing I'm really looking forward to in that fight, is to see what type of Stefan Struve are we getting? Are we getting the old Stefan Struve that's awkward, clumsy, 7 foot, doesn't have his feet under him? Or is he starting to really get his legs under him? Because he looks like he's added a lot more muscle over time. He's really developing his body, and probably is going to take a guy who's 7 foot till 33, 34 to be fully developed. Not 100% sure on that. It's just an opinion. So that's kind of my take on that. I think Stefan Struve is going to win that. I expect him to have his first real legit victory in a while, other than the Bigfoot Silva. Ovis St. Preux versus Jimmy Manoa. For OSP, I think that John Jones fight was huge. Manoa, he's a dangerous fighter. He's obviously a very good fighter, but OSP went 5 rounds with John Jones after John Jones had lifted, 1,000 pounds and all that stuff all the time. it's really interesting that after he added all that muscle and everything, that OSP was still there. And you got to think, John Jones was super scary to fight right at that time, right when people were like, oh, John Jones getting strong. He didn't train for Alexander Gustafsson, which is a big fight that he won that he didn't train for at all. He said he trained like 2 weeks hardly and still beat Gustafsson. And John Jones was doing that to everybody. And then he had his incidents and went away for a minute. And his big first fight back was against OSP. And OSP went 5 rounds with him, and I'm pretty sure he had a broken arm too, or a broken hand. I forget what the injury was. And he gutted it out. He gets huge raving reviews from people on the Fight and Their Kid, like Brendan Schaub, Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience, Eddie Bravo from the Joe Rogan Experience. Oven St. Preux trains under Eddie Bravo jiu-jitsu wise. They say he's a phenomenal wrestler, a phenomenal grappler, and we know he's got striking. We know he's a powerful dude. He's a big guy. So I'm looking for OSP to show he's for real in that fight. I think Jimmy Manuwa, good fighter, but he's kind of a boring fighter. No one's ever like super pumped to see him fight. He's not a big draw. I just think OSP's got too much for him. That's not really a real technical breakdown of that fight, just because I don't see it being a very technical fight. I think OSP is the better fighter. I think OSP showed he's at a championship level by going 5 rounds with John Jones and not getting finished. Not many people can say that, including some of the people on the list that we're going to be talking about here in a minute, Vitor Belfort. So I look for OSP to make a big finish. As far as fight predictions, I think Stefan Struve probably, let's just go second round submission. He's got some great submissions. OSP, I think OSP knocks him out round 2. It's just my call. Let's go for Vitor Belfort versus Gegard Mousasi. Now, this fight is kind of, the theme of this fight is the same theme we're going to have for the main event, and it's a recurring theme. Ever since USADA has come in and shut down drugs in UFC, they're taking the world by storm. And for what USADA is, it's a banned substance test. That doesn't mean you took PEDs. It doesn't mean you took steroids. It doesn't mean you can piss hot for caffeine. You can have too much caffeine. You're only supposed to have the equivalent of 1 cup of coffee of caffeine before the fight. So USADA tests for all these banned substances, and whatever a banned substance is, sorry, I should do these more clear. Whatever your banned substance is, it's all the same. You get punished the same. And I don't know the length of punishment for each thing. I know some have different things. So like if you take a supplement from GNC and they find out that has performance enhancing drugs in it, you get a less of a suspension than if it was like, cocaine or, PED, steroids, stuff like that. So there's ways around it and all that stuff. But since USADA's come in, they've shut down all TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, all PEDs, drugs. I mean, pretty much if you're getting tested, it's a super good test. They've popped and caught every name in the sport that's a big name. I mean, we could go on and on. We got Anderson Silva, Yoel Romero, Chad Mendez, Chael Sonnen. I mean, John Jones. There's so many I can't even go in and try to name them all. It's affected the whole sport. So ever since that happened, long answer there. Ever since that happened, a lot of fighters who were dominant, were crushing it, were doing incredibly great things, especially on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, which you can get from your doctor. It's for people over the age of 40 because your hormones aren't producing as much testosterone. A lot of fighters were on that. Vitor Belfort being one of the biggest mainstream ones because he has a nickname, TRT Vitor, because TRT Vitor was head kicking and destroying people. Like, think about the people TRT beat. TRT Vitor beat. He beat Michael Bisping at his best. He beat Luke Rockhold. He almost beat John Jones. He had John Jones at a nasty armbar. I mean, he had the world on a wrecking crew. Joe Rogan, still to this day on his podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, always talks about how TRT Vitor was the scariest ever. I mean, Vitor's been in the game for a long, long time, been fighting for probably 20 years. I'd have to check. But he's not on TRT anymore. And he hasn't looked good in any fight since he's been off TRT. And it's because his body shut down hormone production in a lot of ways. He's not producing the same level of hormones he was. And although you do keep that advantage, if you're on TRT, if you get stronger, you stay stronger. But once you just shut it down, your body just goes, what the fuck just happened? And doesn't know what to do. And it shuts down all this production of hormones and stuff like that. So once you go off it, it's pretty bad. So that being said, Vitor Belfort used to be like a guy you would never pick against, really. And ever since he's gone off TRT, he's looked terrible. Against Chris Weidman. He's lost to Dan Henderson. I think he lost to Dan Henderson. I'm not positive. Or was that Shogun? That was Shogun, I'm pretty sure. But Vitor has just pretty much lost most of his fights since he's come back from TRT. from lack of TRT. And Gegard Mousasi is a ruthless killer. He's an all-around versatile guy, submission, striking. He's got a little bit of a height advantage on Vitor, which is always important. It doesn't mean that if you're taller, you're going to win every fight, but it's an advantage. So all those advantages, and plus, if he's clean like he claims to have been clean, it could be an ugly night for Vitor. We saw with Bigfoot Silva, who went off TRT, and he's been knocked out 6 times in a row, that these guys just don't recover the same. And for anybody that doesn't know what the big difference is, it's not just so much that you can fight better or that you can train longer, you can absorb more punishment. So if you get hit in the face and a normal person would go to sleep and get knocked out, if you're on TRT, there is the possibility that you could absorb 2 more shots to everyone's 1, or 3, or whatever the equation is. And I'm sure it's different for every fighter, but you just don't get knocked out as easy. Well, my prediction for that fight, I just think Mousasi is going to destroy Vitor Belfort. I think the lack of TRT is going to get him out of the UFC. It's going to get him out of the fight game. He'll probably retire after this. He's a great fighter. His skill set is legendary. He's got great hands. He's got great everything. He's Vitor Belfort. He's a legend in the sport. So it pains me to say these things about him, but without TRT, him getting older and facing these young guns like Gegard Mousasi, who isn't so much of a young gun, but he's like the new generation, I just think Gegard is going to come out and be a ruthless killer to that guy. I think it's going to be an ugly fight. I think it's going to end pretty quickly because I just don't think Vitor can take the same shots. All right, moving on to really what this whole video is about, the main event. Michael Bisping versus Dan Hendo Henderson. Man, I'm so excited for this fight. It's match 2. They've already fought once. But a lot of things have changed. It's been years since that fight, like 5-6 years. And it's an infamous fight where Dan Henderson knocks out Michael Bisping with the infamous H-bomb, his big overhand right that just destroys people. And he caught Bisping with it so clean. Then he comes down with that elbow on the face. Well, it probably wasn't needed, but like he said, he did it a little bit on purpose to get him to shut him up. And that's the logo of Dan Henderson's brand, by the way, is him falling down on Michael Bisping with an elbow. So that shows how personal this fight is. But same situation. Dan Henderson in his mid to late 40s. I haven't looked up his age, but he's in his 40s for sure. He's on the other side of the hill, not on TRT. Man, for a guy who really would need TRT, over 40, he's in the age where the hormone production is not as good, and if he was a normal, just 9-to-5er, would need to take TRT. Can't because he's participating in UFC and they just don't allow it anymore. Michael Bisping, though, been clean his whole career and is a super technical fighter. He's got great striking, great ground game, great. He's one of those guys that he doesn't have weaknesses. His weaknesses is he doesn't have power. He's not a knockout artist. Well, at least that's what we always said. Fights Luke Rockhold, surprises Luke Rockhold on 11 days notice, knocks out Luke Rockhold, and then Brendan Schaub from the Fire and Kid brings up a really interesting point. If you go through Michael Bisping's career, most of his losses come from people who have got caught or been caught or admitted to doing PEDs, TRT, performance-enhancing supplements. Dan Henderson, TRT, Vitor Belfort, TRT. Those are just 2 examples of people Michael Bisping has lost to, and you could attribute a lot of that to performance-enhancing drugs, TRT, stuff like that. So if you look at Michael Bisping's career, he hasn't really lost to a lot of people that are clean, So when it comes down to just fighter versus fighter, Michael Bisping looks really good. I mean, look at him versus Luke Rockhold. Shocked the world on 11 days notice and beat Luke Rockhold. And Dan Henderson has not looked good in his last couple fights. But the one thing I will say about Dan Henderson is he's excellent in the scramble. He knocked out Fedor. He knocked out Shogun. He's knocked out countless other people in scrambles. When the fights go, Hector Lombard, his most recent fight with that, side right elbow when he caught Hector Lombard's right leg. That was a scramble, so to speak. It's those moments inside the moment that he wins. And when you have the H-bomb, which is overhand right, it's destructive and anybody can go to sleep. So it's always a possibility from Dan Henderson he could win the fight. My prediction would be that Bisping is probably going to technically mess up Dan Henderson. It's going to look a lot like, to me, when BJ Penn was retiring and Rory McDonald kind of messed him up, and then Nick Diaz messed him up, and he was just getting beat up, and it was probably more than anything, it was the miles. It was just the miles of the fighter. How many shots can you take before you're punch drunk, so to speak. And I think Henderson is close to that level. So, kind of wrapping this all up, I picked Bisping to win that fight. I think Bisping is going to dominate that fight. I think Masasi is going to dominate this fight. I look for OSP to dominate Jimmy Manoa, and hopefully Stefan Struve can kind of get everything together. So kind of my picks: Bisping knockout round 3. Belfort, I think he will get finished by TKO in round 1. Ovince St. Preux, I think, will get probably the decision over Manoa now that I think about it. And Stefan Struve, submission round 2. Those are just kind of my rough picks if I was doing DraftKings and you needed picks. But I don't really like to make picks, so to speak, but I have theories of how things are going to go down. I think Bisping's going to be too technical. I think Belfort just can't take shots anymore. OSP's wrestling is too good. His ground game's too good. Not that it's too good compared to Jimmy Manoa, but once Daniel Cormier talks about this, when he faced John Jones, you get the rub. And when the rub is like when you fight one of the best fighters for 5 rounds, they rub off on you and you realize kind of what it takes to be the best fighter. I think OSP got the rub from John Jones last fight, so I think he's going to look great. So a few things about the stream as we wrap this up. Definitely comment your picks, what you think is going to happen. Like I said, I'm in no way an expert. Anything can happen. Best thing about UFC, so no one knows what's going to happen. So we're doing a fight companion for it this Saturday, probably going live about 8 p.m. And if you haven't watched a fight companion, it's a pretty fun thing. We just watch fights. It's Joe Rogan Experience does fight companions. Watch one of ours, watch one of theirs. They're just fun, relaxed things. Group of guys watching fights, and it's super fun to be a part of. Catch my Twitch stream. We're streaming, usually probably Tuesday through Friday now, 7 to 10. We play UFC, we play NBA 2K. We're soon to be playing WWE 2K, so definitely check that out. If you're watching this on YouTube, like it, comment, subscribe. Watching this on Twitch, follow, please. Go to my Twitter, Morgan_James13. Give that a follow. I'm always doing fight updates there. And if you are watching this live, I'm going to be going live back on Twitch here in about 15-20 minutes. If you're catching this after the fact, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Morgan James stream. This was my UFC 204 main card full fight breakdown. Hope you guys enjoying it. Please comment to me your guys' fight picks, and then we'll catch you guys later. And then definitely hang out with us this Saturday for UFC 204. And then do not miss Lightsabers and Arm Bars episode 3 this Sunday at noon. Till next time, thanks guys.